Welcome to the Schuylerville Central School District's training on prevention of workplace violence. I'm Mickey Jones, Safety Coordinator from BOCES. This training will take you through the new requirements from the New York State Department of Labor. The New York State Department of Labor regulations require public employers to develop and implement a workplace violence prevention program. The Schuylerville Central School District has developed a workplace violence policy statement, performed a risk evaluation and determined workplace violence risk factors, developed a written workplace violence prevention program. In that program, we established and implemented the workplace violence incident reporting and recording system, implemented safeguards and control measures to protect employees from workplace violence. We are now providing the employees with the information and the training. On an annual basis, the district will review all incident reports for workplace violence to see if there are any mitigating factors that can be implemented. This regulation applies to all public employers and their employees, including state agencies, county, city, town, and village employees, fire departments, both paid and volunteer, police departments, public authorities, public benefit coordinators, public school districts, BOCES, New York City Public Schools, county vocational education and extension boards, and other government agencies. Schools have always been exempt from this regulation. As of November of 2023, schools were then put into the compliance requirement. Schools are now required to have this program and maintain it. No employer can retaliate against any employee because the employee exercised any of the rights that we're going to talk about in this training. So what is workplace violence? It's any physical assault or act of aggressive behavior occurring where a public employee performs any work-related duties in the course of employment, including but not limited to any verbal or physical attempt or threat to cause physical injury to an employee, any intentional display of force which gives an employee reason to fear or expect bodily harm, intentional, wrongful, and non-consensual sexual contact that causes injury, stalking an employee with the intent of causing fear of harm to their physical safety and health. Acts of workplace violence can be perpetrated employee to employee, parent to employee, visitor to employee, and student to employee. Acts of violence that occur at a workplace are what is reportable, as long as you are acting as an employee on behalf of the district. The New York State Department of Labor defines a workplace as a permanent or temporary location outside of an employee's home where an employee performs any work-related duties in the course of employment. This would include working in the central office, being on a field trip, out-of-office meetings or conferences, sporting events, buses. Why do we care about verbal and physical violence in the workplace? Employees have the right to a safe and secure workplace. Violence prevention can impact employees' physical and mental well-being. Workplace violence interferes with the mission of the Schuylerville Central School District. The Workplace Violence Prevention Policy Statement. The Schuylerville Central School District developed a written policy statement that describes the goals, objectives, the methods of incident reporting, and how authorized employee representatives can participate in the Workplace Violence Prevention Program. As we put this program together, we did involve representation from all bargaining units, along with district officials. The policy statement will be displayed on notices where you will normally see district information, as well as on the district's website. This is a copy of the district's Workplace Violence Policy Statement. It can be found on the district's website in the board docs under our policies. The district's representative for the Workplace Violence Prevention Program will be the superintendent. In addition to the policy statement, we also have a written Workplace Violence Prevention Program. The Workplace Violence Prevention Act requires that we develop this with the school district along with the union representation. The Workplace Violence Prevention Act and the associated regulation required the school district to perform a risk evaluation to determine workplace violent risk factors. The committee reviewed records of workplace violence, including all workers' compensation reports from the 2023 school year, the assessment of relevant policies, work practices, and work procedures that impact workplace violence, and conducted an evaluation of the physical environment with the participation of all of the representatives previously mentioned. Each year, the district must review workplace violence incidents that occurred in the previous year to identify patterns. We will look for things that types and causes of injuries, specific areas within the workplace where incidents occurred, specific workplace practices involved in incidents, and specific individuals involved with incidents. Identifications of risk. What puts an employee at more risk for workplace violence? Working in a public setting, working in late nights or early morning hours, exchanging money with the public, working alone or in small numbers, working in a setting with uncontrolled access to the workplace, working in a setting where previous security problems have occurred, having a mobile workplace assignment, working with a population which might expose one to potentially violent persons, and having duties that include the delivery of passengers, goods, or services. The Act and New York State Department of Labor regulations require a method by which the school district will address each specific risk identified in a workplace risk evaluation. We are trying to find ways in which we can protect our employees. After we identified the risk, we then have to look at mitigation efforts, or things that we can do to reduce or eliminate the potential for workplace violence. We addressed this using a thing called hierarchy of control. That's the method of ranking control measures or safeguards by their effectiveness. The first is to see if we may implement an engineering control. An engineering control reduces the risk through a physical change to the workplace. Examples would be keeping doors locked, using swipe card access only, improving exterior lighting, changing anything physical within our buildings, even changing door entrances that people are allowed to use. Work practice controls reduce the risk by changing workplace policies or procedures, having things like check-in procedures. If you're going on a field trip, presenting someone with your itinerary so they know where you are, when to expect you back. And then personal protective equipment. This is the employer's last resort to protect employees from workplace violence. Personal protective equipment may include things like Kevlar sleeves to prevent bites, or spit shields to prevent being spit at. The district has created a form for you to report workplace violence. That form will ask you multiple questions. The questions that you should be prepared to answer on that form include the workplace location where the incident occurred, the time of day or the shift when the incident occurred, the daily description of the event, including events that leading up to the incident and how the incident was resolved, the names and titles of employees that were involved, the name or other identifier of others involved. We ask that you please do not use student names if students were involved in the incident. Instead, please use only their initials, as these forms will be viewed by an entire committee. The nature and extent of injuries arising from this incident, and the name of any witnesses to this incident. It is also important to note that there may be times where there are things that have happened to an employee of a sensitive nature. For instances where privacy is a concern, the report will not use an employee's name. Instead, they will just put privacy concern case. The following incidents are to be treated as privacy concern cases: an injury or illness to an intimate body part or reproductive system, an injury or illness resulting from a sexual assault, mental illness, HIV infections, needle stick injuries and cuts from sharp objects that are or may be contaminated with other person's blood or other potentially infectious materials, other injuries or illnesses if the employee independently and voluntarily requests that their name not be entered onto the report. Remembering that all of these accidents and all these injuries resulted from workplace violence, not just an incident, not just an accident. What happens after I fill out a report? Upon filling out the Google form, the employee's report will go to the superintendent. The superintendent will acknowledge the receipt of the form to the person who submitted it. The superintendent will review the incident with the employee's supervisor or principal. The supervisor or principal will investigate and determine if any mitigation efforts will prevent incidents in the future and take action. Not every workplace violence act will be able to have a mitigation effort. The supervisor or principal will report the findings back to the superintendent, and the superintendent will report back to the employee who completed the incident form. Please remember that if this was an occurrence between employees, you may not be told the exact outcome of the investigation. You may simply be told that this was handled using district disciplinary procedures as outlined by the Code of Conduct. After a reasonable opportunity has passed and the employee or their authorized representative still believes that there's a serious violation of the Workplace Violence Prevention Program, or there's an imminent danger, the employee or authorized employee representative may submit a written request for an inspection by filing a complaint with the Public Employee Safety and Health, PESH, Bureau of the Department of Labor's Division of Safety and Health. What is an imminent danger? An imminent danger exists by definition if any workplace condition or practice which could reasonably be expected to cause death or serious physical harm immediately, or which could reasonably be expected to lead to the danger of death or serious physical harm, which could be eliminated through the enforcement procedures of the Workplace Violence Prevention Program before the danger becomes immediate. Reporting to the Department of Labor, the notice must be in writing. It must describe in detail the reason of why you are contacting the Department of Labor, and it must be signed by the employee or their authorized representative. The New York State Department of Labor Commission will provide a copy of the written notice to the school district no later than at the time of the inspection. The employee or the representative may request that their name be withheld from the school district's copy. The Department of Labor has created a special form to be filled out on their website relating to workplace violence. You may also call their task force hotline. Where will I find the district-specific information related to workplace violence? When you go on the district's website, if you click on the Staff Resources button, you will find the Workplace Violence Prevention highlight. You will click on the link to access the information about workplace violence prevention and links to that report form. When you click on the link, it will take you to the district's webpage where they have a link to the policy statement. You can look at the evaluation of the physical environment. You can look at the risk and mitigation efforts. You can look at the Workplace Violence Prevention written program, and there is also a copy of the Workplace Violence report form. Please note, if you had an injury due to an incident of workplace violence, in addition to filling out the Workplace Violence report form, you must still fill out an accident report. Thank you for your time in watching this presentation. This training will become a new annual training for all employees or anyone that receives a paycheck within the school district. This must be taken at least once per year or within 30 days of hire. If you have questions, please contact the Office of the Superintendent. You may also contact Mickey Jones, Safety Coordinator. Thank you for your assistance.